A soft gleam catches your eye as you sift through an old wooden bowl of loose change. Among the familiar clinks of copper and nickel, one small disc stands out. Its mint mark looks off, as if stamped twice, or maybe its surface shimmers with an unusual tone. You pause, realizing that what most people pass over might just be the treasure you've been hunting. Today you'll meet 3 modern dimes, 2007, 2015, and 2001 Roosevelt issues, that hide surprising stories and unexpected value beneath their common exterior. These aren't dusty museum pieces or multi-century relics with fading details. Instead, they're coins you might already own, tucked into a jar at home, waiting for a closer look. First up, the 2007 Roosevelt dime, whose subtle quirks have sent seasoned collectors into a frenzy. Sliding from your fingertips onto your palm, the 2007 dime shows the familiar profile of Franklin Roosevelt, gazing serenely ahead. At first glance, it seems unremarkable. Only when you shift it under brighter light do the unusual traits appear. This third coin of the 21st century Roosevelt series was struck at 2 mints, Philadelphia and Denver, with over 4 billion pieces combined. Such vast numbers would suggest it's one of the most common coins in American pocket change. Yet, a handful bear striking errors, doubled mint marks, die cracks, and even misplaced planchet clips, that transform a 10-cent piece into a sought-after collectible. Tracing its lineage back to 1946, the Roosevelt dime honored the late president's memory and his work founding the March of Dimes. By 2007, the design had remained essentially unchanged for more than 6 decades, FDR's profile on the obverse, flanked by "Liberty, in God We Trust," and the date, and on the reverse, a trio of symbols, the torch of liberty, an olive branch signifying peace, and an oak branch for strength. That steadfast design makes any deviations all the more arresting. When a mint mark appears twice in shadowy relief, or a crack mars the die, the result is a modern rarity rooted in a time-honored design. Mintages in 2007 were enormous, approximately 2.8 billion struck in Philadelphia and about 1.8 billion at Denver. Yet, the vast output also increased the likelihood of minting anomalies. On the Philadelphia issues, collectors hunt for double die obverse examples where the denticles along the rim or the letters of "Liberty" show ghost-like duplication. Denver's branch is famous for repunched mint marks, the famous D over D or D over small d, where the mint mark punch was misaligned and struck a second time. Both varieties stay hidden unless you pull out a loop or sit by a light box examining each candidate individually. To spot a double die obverse, inspect the date and FDR's jawline for faint parallels. Look closely at the mint mark on Denver pieces. If you see a halo of extra metal or 2 distinct D impressions, you've likely found a repunched mint mark. Another error worth watching for is the die crack, thin, raised lines showing where the steel die fractured under pressure. On some 2007 dimes, these cracks radiate from the rim into the fields near the torch, creating a spider web of metal that no 2 errors duplicate exactly. Planchet clips, when a portion of the blank is missing before striking, produce an arc-shaped missing section, and although less dramatic, even those can carry a premium. These minting quirks arise from the mechanical stresses inside a striking press. Dies endure thousands of impressions before being retired, and minor misalignments or metal fatigue can introduce aberrations without shutting down production. When quality control catches one of these, the press keeps rolling until the anomaly becomes too pronounced. That's why error coins often follow a pattern, a handful from a single die before replacement, each bearing the same signature flaw. Tracking them reveals production timelines and the mint's responses to equipment wear. In basic circulated grades, about good, AG, through extremely fine, EF, most 2007 Roosevelt dimes trade at face value or only slightly above, perhaps 25 to 50 cents a piece for those with light, even wear. The real premiums emerge in higher grades and error variants. An EF 40 repunched mint mark example might fetch $75 to $125, while an uncirculated mint state 63 could climb to $150 or more. Condition counts here. The sharper the detail, the less contact the coin has seen, and the more appealing it becomes to collectors hunting pristine error specimens. Auction records highlight just how valuable these modern mistakes can be. A stunning MS-67 Denver repunched mint mark sold for $610 in January 2020, turning 10 cents into a $600 payday for one lucky consignor. Even more remarkable, a well-toned MS-64 double die obverse realized $450 at a Maryland auction in 2018, its warm russet hues and crisp error lines commanding attention. These headline-grabbing sums remind us that rarity and condition combine to create the kind of market excitement usually reserved for coins centuries old. Collectors often share tales of surprising discoveries in everyday transactions. One dealer recounts a customer strolling in with a handful of common dates, only to leave with a check for $1,200 after a quick glance under a loupe revealed subtle doubling on the date of a 2007 P dime in almost flawless shape. Stories like that underline a simple truth: keen eyes and patience can turn a pocketful of small change into a mini fortune. Local coin clubs and online forums buzz whenever fresh error rolls emerge from banks, and seasoned collectors race to claim the best specimens. By taking a closer look at your change, you bridge generations of collectors, from boom-era aficionados chasing classics to the new wave hunting digital catalogs of shiny modern errors. Keep that loupe handy, scan mint rolls carefully, and you might just uncover a 2007 dime worth far more than its face value. And if this first treasure has sparked your curiosity, get ready. Up next, we'll explore the 2015 Roosevelt dime's most astonishing quirks, where mistakes at a different mint reveal entirely new avenues of discovery. Sliding from one modern marvel to the next, the 2015 Roosevelt dime steps into the spotlight with subtle surprises that can turn a routine bankroll raid into an exhilarating discovery. Striking the mint's presses at both Philadelphia and Denver, over 2 billion of these little silver-colored discs rolled out into circulation, yet, amid that tidal wave of common dates, a handful harbor quirks that send experienced collectors' hearts racing. At first, the 2015 dime appears identical to its predecessors, Roosevelt's dignified profile, the Torch of Liberty flanked by olive and oak branches, all rendered in gleaming copper-nickel clad. But behind that familiar face lies a story stretching back to 1946, when the Roosevelt dime was born to honor the president's leadership and his campaign against polio through the March of Dimes. By 2015, the design had weathered decades of small refinements in planchet composition and strike pressure, but the essence remained unchanged, making each error or variation stand out like a fingerprint on glass. Mintages for 2015 clocked in at roughly 1.25 billion Philadelphia strikes and nearly 900 million from Denver. Within that flood, die polishing, misaligned punches, and mechanical hiccups created pockets of rarity. One of the most talked about varieties is the 2015 P double die obverse, where the motto, "In God We Trust," shows faint but distinct shadows on each letter. These microscopic echoes emerge when the die receives two slightly offset impressions during hubbing, and they linger like silent witnesses to a momentary lapse in perfect alignment. Denver's contribution to the rarities list comes in the form of repunched mint marks. While most D mint marks appear as single, clean stamps, some 2015 D dimes carry a ghostly underimpression, a second, skewed D that peeks out from beneath the primary strike. Collectors refer to these as D over D repunches, and they vary from nearly imperceptible shifts to bold, overlapping stamps that practically scream error when you rotate the coin under strong light. Beyond doubling and repunching, the 2015 dime yields other delights: clipped planchets where a sliver of the blank was missing before striking, producing an arc of unstruck metal at the rim, brockage strikes capturing the mirror image of a previous impression on the blank, and die cracks that spiderweb outward from the torch's flame or the rim into the fields. Each of these anomalies has its own niche audience. Some favor the architectural chaos of a broad die crack, others the geometric precision of a clipped planchet. In circulated grades, most error examples still trade relatively modestly, $1 to $5 over face for a faint double die in good to fine condition. But as eyes sharpen and surfaces shine, those numbers climb quickly. An extremely fine 40 double die obverse might command $75, while a bold D over D repunched mint mark in about uncirculated condition often fetches $100 to $150. Once you cross into the mint state realm, even more dramatic premiums appear. MS-63 errors can trade from $200 to $300, with pristine MS-65 pieces pushing $400 or higher, depending on how crisp the doubling or repunching registers and how flawless the fields remain. Auction records showcase the peak of what collectors will pay. A 2015 P double die obverse certified MS-67 sold for $820 at a major East Coast auction in June 2021, its letters glowing with a ghostly second impression that the winner deemed museum quality under a loupe. Just a few months later, a 2015 D repunched mint mark in MS-66 crossed the block for $1,100, a sum many longtime Roosevelt fans say redefines what modern errors can achieve in today's market. One of the most talked about discovery stories comes from a Midwestern coin shop owner who casually checked a customer's roll of dimes in September 2022. Spotting a clipped planchet at the rim of a 2015 dime, she pulled out a loupe and realized the blank had been missing almost 20% of its edge before striking. That coin alone netted $325 when submitted to a grading service, a reminder that even the most everyday errands can yield extraordinary finds. For condition-driven valuation, remember this hierarchy: any error in a heavily circulated state, VG 8 to EF 40, might bring $25 to $75. Once coins enter about uncirculated, -50 Australian dollars to -58 Australian dollars, values jump to $100 to $200 for bold errors. In mint state, MS-60 to MS-62 generally carry $150 to $250 price tags on mid-visibility doubling or repunched marks, while MS-63 to MS-65 drive into the $300 to $600 range. At the very top, MS-66 and above, especially those with exceptionally sharp detail and eye appeal, can soar past $1,000. The allure of these coins goes beyond numbers. Collectors talk about the thrill of watching doubling ripple across Roosevelt's hair or tracing the curve of a die crack from rim to torch. In online forums, debates rage over which error type offers the best long-term investment potential. Will the finely struck double die appreciated more steadily than the bold repunched mint mark? Is a clipped planchet's rarity offset by its often unappealing shape? For seasoned collectors, these discussions are as engaging as the hunt itself. Scanning through your pocket change or hunting through bank-wrapped rolls with a loupe and a checklist can feel like a modern-day treasure map. Each minting press left its subtle signature, and unearthing a glaring error in a mound of boring, modern coinage brings the same rush that once drove people to chase cobs and Spanish reals. Even after decades of collecting, the 2015 Roosevelt dime reminds you that new chapters in numismatic history can emerge from the churn of everyday commerce. So as you wrap up that second roll of dimes, lean on your eyes, your experience, and a good light source. The 2015 issues reward patience and close inspection with the chance to own a piece of modern minting lore, and potentially a valuable asset too. When you're ready to uncover one final surprise, get set to explore the 2001 Roosevelt dime errors, where the turn of the millennium brought its own slate of unexpected treasures. Shifting from modern marvels to a turn-of-the-century enigma, the 2001 Roosevelt dime emerges as a treasure trove of subtle quirks and overlooked anomalies. Struck right at the dawn of the new millennium, these dimes bear the familiar profile of Franklin Roosevelt, yet beneath their polished surfaces lie stories of minting mishaps and design holdovers that quietly intrigued collectors for decades. While most of us handed them over in grocery stores or let them settle in change jars, a small fraction of these coins slipped through quality control with features that transform a common dime into a sought-after collectible. The story of the 2001 dime begins with a design dating back to 1946, when the U.S. Mint first honored Roosevelt's legacy with a coin dedicated to his fight against polio and his leadership during World War II. By 2001, the Roosevelt dime had become numismatic background noise, ubiquitous, consistent, and largely unchanging. Yet the mechanics that churn out millions of coins each year are prone to tiny missteps. That year, the Philadelphia and Denver mints together produced well over 3 billion dimes, and among them, a handful reveal die cracks, doubling, and mint mark irregularities that enthusiasts still search for under strong light. One of the most intriguing varieties from 2001 arises in the RPM category, repunched mint mark. On Denver pieces, the mint mark D sometimes appears with a faint underimpression, a ghostly shadow offset just enough to expose the repunch. These RPMs vary in visibility, some reveal only a whisper of metal under the main strike, while others show a bold, overlapping second D. On Philadelphia coins, look for double die obverse examples where the motto, "In God We Trust," or the date exhibits a thin, parallel outline. These subtle echoes are born when the die receives two distinct impressions from the hub during creation. Another class of rarities comes from die cracks, those thin raised lines that spider out when a steel die begins to fracture. On certain 2001 dimes, you might spot a crack radiating from the rim into the fields near Roosevelt's hairline or along the torch's flame on the reverse. Each die crack pattern is unique, almost like the fingerprint of the minting press that produced it. To spot them, collectors often place the coin under directional light and rotate it until the raised lines pop, revealing a tiny web that transforms a mundane dime into a conversation piece. Clipped planchets also make occasional appearances. When the blank metal discs are cut from sheets, mechanical issues can leave arcs missing from the edge. On a 2001 dime, a clip will reveal itself as a smooth, crescent-shaped gap along the rim. Though less flashy than doubling or cracks, these clips are prized by some for their geometric simplicity and the story they tell of the mint's manufacturing line. Despite these intriguing variations, most 2001 Roosevelt dimes in circulated grades still change hands at face value or only marginally above. It's when you graduate into about uncirculated AU, or mint state MS, grades that premiums kick in. A faint double die on a heavily worn 2001 P might fetch $5 to $10 among informed collectors. By contrast, an MS-63 example with crisp doubling could command $75 to $125. Repunched mint marks in bold AU grades often trade for $100 to $150, while those in MS-65 reach $300 or more, depending on strike quality and eye appeal. Auction houses have recorded surprising sums for standout specimens. In March 2019, an MS-66 2001 D with a deep, pronounced RPM sold for $550, its overlapping D so clear it looked like two coins stamped at once. Another highlight came in July 2022, when an MS-67 2001 P double die obverse achieved $620, the raised ghost lines dancing across Roosevelt's cheek under magnification. These headline sales show that even modern dimes, often overlooked by casual collectors, can yield 5- or 6-figure returns when rarity meets exceptional condition. Among the liveliest tales is the one from a coin shop in suburban Texas. In late 2020, a collector brought in a Ziploc bag of loose change, resigned to swap them for cash. The dealer flipped through dozens of worn dimes before a glint of metal on the rim of a 2001 D caught her eye. Under a loupe, the repunched mint mark revealed itself in bold relief, and that humble dime later sold through an online auction platform for $475. The seller, initially expecting pocket change, walked away with an unexpectedly fat profit, and a great story to share at the next coin club meeting. Collectors often debate which error type in the 2001 series offers the best long-term investment. Some argue that bold RPMs on Denver strikes, with their clear overlapping DS, will always command premiums. Others favor the double die obverse from Philadelphia, whose every parallel line on Roosevelt's portrait tells a story of die hubbing that went awry. Then there are the vintage feel die cracks, where the raised fissures lend a certain antique charm to a coin barely 2 decades old. Each camp has its reasons: visibility, aesthetic appeal, or scarcity, and that diversity of opinion keeps the market lively. For those grading their own coins, remember to note the sharpness of Roosevelt's design elements, hairlines, torch details, and the crispness of lettering. Errors that sit on strong, precise fields, where contact marks and bag rub haven't eroded the doubled lines or cracks, will always fetch more than those with faint or worn anomalies. Similarly, planchet clips that maintain full relief in the design, rather than encroaching on key features, tend to be more desirable. Condition-based valuations for the 2001 dime errors generally follow a tiered pattern. In the lowest circulated tiers, VF20 to EF40, minor double dies or faint RPMs might sell for $10 to $25. Once you hit AU grades, -50 Australian dollars to -58 Australian dollars, bold examples jump to $100 to $200. In mint state, early MS60 to MS62 grades for clear errors start around $150 to $250, MS63 to MS65 see $300 to $500, and top-end MS66 and above, especially those with blemish-free surfaces and dramatic errors, can soar past $600 to $700. Premiums for exceptional eye appeal, natural toning or flawless luster, can push prices even higher, adding an unpredictable but welcome dimension to bidding wars. Beyond numbers, what truly draws collectors to the 2001 dime is that sense of discovery. You hold a piece of modern history, a coin minted during the final months before the calendar flipped to 2002, and you realize the same hand presses that struck billions of flawless dimes also produced just a handful that slipped through the cracks. Whether you're inspecting a die crack that looks like a tiny lightning bolt or marveling at a doubled motto that whispers of misaligned machinery, each error whispers a story of precision machines under stress and the human element that still guides quality control. As the third and final coin in our lineup, the 2001 Roosevelt dime teaches a simple lesson: even the most familiar designs, minted in the millions, can surprise you when you look closely. Next time you discard your spare change, pause and scan for subtle shadows, silvery cracks, and arcs missing from the rim. Your next 10-cent discovery could be worth far more than its face value. So keep your loop within reach and let curiosity guide your hunt. Modern treasures await in even the most ordinary rolls.